Hello, everybody. It's 12:52 p.m. Central Time on the 18th of August, 2021. It's Wednesday here in the United States. Hope you're doing well. Guys, got a little bit of a throat issue going on today. Not COVID. I was yelling outside yesterday, not angrily, working on some stuff up and down some hills and doing a lot of blasting with my voice. It's blown out today, but we'll try and get through, and we're going to turn on a display capture to show you what we're looking at here. For all my new viewers, if you don't know what you're looking at, we're looking at Earthquake 3D, the program, which shows us the USGS and EMSC European feeds, and we're looking at about 48 hours worth of earthquakes right now. Here's actually 48 right there. So, we've got some news. Earlier this morning at 10 o'clock UTC time, I believe, or let's see, let's get the time on that. I'm sorry, 17:53. No, wrong on that again. I am right. 10 UTC, and this was a 6.9 to 7.2. It originally came in at 7.2, sounding the alarm on Earthquake 3D. USGS came in, we're at 6.9. I've told you guys about this in the past. They take a lot of the 7s down to 6.9. They take a lot of the 6s down to 5.9. They take a lot of the 5s down to 4.9. They'll even take a 9 down to an 8.9 if you'll let them. And they tried to do that with the Japan quake back in 2011, for instance. It's a way of padding the numbers to make things less in the future. So somebody 20 years from now, if they look up how many 7.0 range quakes we had this week, you would get 0 because the USGS has altered the information to be less than what it really is. Okay? And it's a way, again, to keep things low. Now, what's going on? This is our our 7th 7 in the last 7 days. This is the most 7.0 activity I've seen all over the planet in the entire time I've been around, including in 2011. In 2011, we had the big mega quake up in Japan. We had a bunch of other 6.0 range activity. We even had 8s that happened in 2012. But this is something I've never really seen before, which is a whole planet covered in 7s. Going from all the way up in Japan, or north of Japan, going all the way up, all the way to Alaska, going all the way back down to the South Sandwich Islands on the southeast side of the Pacific, and then, of course, the Caribbean hit at Haiti with a 7. Don't forget the other 8 here, and the 8 that happened up here, and the 7 that happened yesterday up in Alaska again. Not counting the 7 that happened over here at Philippines. We're dealing with a lot of 7.0 range activity. And this 7, or 6.9, comes on the heels of our new round of deep earthquakes that are taking place. You see them raised high off the globe for easy identification purposes. And this is, again, in about 48 hours worth of quakes right there. You can see it. Again, letter Ds are on the map, which signify where we watch for new deep earthquakes to occur. So, deep earthquake right on our letter D there at Fiji. Another deep earthquake just next to our letter D in the Sea of Japan. Another set of deep earthquakes over on our letter D over at Afghanistan. And then a few spots where we don't have Ds. More rare to see deep earthquakes in Europe, for instance, down below Italy. And more rare to see deep earthquakes over at Mexico and going over into the Caribbean, for instance. Now, that's all taken place in the past few days. I'm not even talking about the United States yet, although I do have to mention Hawaii has now been hit. 4.5, a 4 and a 4.4. So, add it together, it equals 4.5. This is exactly what we warned for to happen in Hawaii. Let's go in and see where that 4 took place. Well, I'll be darned. Look where it happened. The 4 happened right where we were expecting it to go. Right in the middle of the Middle East Rift Zone, or the Middle Rift Zone, right next to Kilauea and Pahala. So that's where we are with the activity going across the West Pacific. I haven't even mentioned Japan yet, which has a 5.3 quake on the Izu Ridge. You have to remember, or maybe you didn't know, that this week the biggest volcanic blast in, well, let's say at least the last several months has taken place, and it came from an undersea volcano, went up 56,000 feet up into the atmosphere, and that's right here on the Izu Ridge. Let's go over and take a quick gander, or a quick look on the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, just to see if there's any new additions to the list. So, going down the list, Shiveluch up in northwest Pacific in Kamchatka, Seismopochnoi right next to it in the Aleutian Islands, Shirinkotin right next to it in the Kuril Islands, Kurimsky also going in Kamchatka. That's 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all right next to each other. Sabancaya in Peru in the very far southeast Pacific, back to Shiveluch several times. Fuego in Guatemala and Luatolo in Indonesia. Reventador in Ecuador, Seismopochnoi again, Mount Merapi going up to 12,000 foot, flight level 120. What else do we have? It looks like that's it. It's just a repeat of all the volcanoes getting down to Suwanee-Zajima in Japan and Mount Ibu over in Indonesia. Oh, hold on. We need to add in Mount Ebeko. Okay, Mount Ebeko. And now we're in the 17th. Okay, we're at yesterday. Let me show you where all these are. Starting right here is the 56,000 foot high blast that happened a few days ago at Fukutoku. And then up here to the north, we have Mount Ebeko, which is right here on this little island or right next to it. Then Kurimsky and Shiveluch, 1, 2, 3. Over to the east, Seismopochnoi, that's 4. So we're seeing an increase up here to the north. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then of course we add in down in Japan, that's 5. Here, down to the south. And over here, we have a volcano, Suwanee-Zajima, south of Japan, also going. So that's a lot of activity all the way across the area, and it's following a lot of seismic movement, deep earthquakes down below. Energy is escaping out down to Hawaii, hence Hawaii being struck with the exact magnitude that we forecast for, going back up into the mid-range 4 level. So back to it, new 7 striking today. USGS 6.9, whatever. Over to the west we go, and we go across China, where we have a round of 5s, well, 4.9 and 4.3. If we add them together, it equals 5.003, so 5. And it's right at the bend in the plate, on the plate boundary, that goes across Myanmar into China. Myanmar, China. Ring a bell for any of my viewers? How about the forecast? We're looking for energy to go up and around the bend, and I called for Myanmar at the China border region. There it is, 5. Going to the west, a new 5, also striking at the tip of our arrow, and we have a new deep earthquake there as well, right in the tip of our arrow, and we have our letter D there, letting us know to watch for new deep earthquakes to take place. So a shallow 5 from a day ago, a new deep 4, and so now we have to warn Iran, Pakistan, of all places, Afghanistan. Look where the rings come together. Do you see this? So, first of all, look, I know they're in the news, and I'm not doing this because they're in the news. You can see where the previous earthquakes are from the past 48 hours. This is the USGS and European feed combined. What we do is we look where the rings overlap for potential new earthquake activity to take place. That puts us into East Iran. Of course, this is Afghanistan, and this is Pakistan down on the south side. So we look between the 3, right here. The potential magnitude. What size? Well, we got 5s on both sides, and we have 5s coming in. We add it all together and it equals mid-range 5. So we'll put it at 5.5, and it should strike within the next few days. Over to the west, let's talk about Europe. So Croatia got hit. Well, actually, hold on. Let me make sure, because they're so close to each other. Hold on. Yeah, it is Croatia. Okay, again, we're right next to Bosnia and Slovenia. If I get it wrong, it's offensive. So I don't mean, if I get the wrong country, I don't want to. 4.6 came rolling in just as expected. Now, there's something missing from this. An earthquake in the middle of it all that's bigger than it all. See where all the rings overlap? We're looking for a significant size quake to strike in the middle of the Aegean Sea. And instead, we don't have anything except for some 3s. Meanwhile, out all the way across Europe, all of Europe's moving. And I mean it. Look, even the English Channel, coast of Normandy. Let me get a sip of my smoothie here. Nothing better than the smoothie on a summer day when your throat's just crushed. So good. So, new 3 breaking out. Well, that's English Channel, guys. Well, I don't even know. The French would probably beg to differ, right? A little English-French joke there, okay? Now, earthquakes are going across Europe because all of Europe's being pushed. It's a big push. This is nothing to joke around about now. This new deep 4 here in the Tyrrhenian Sea south of Italy, north of Sicily, right here in the body of water. Whenever we see deep earthquakes here, I have to warn central Italy. Now, I already have a warning going right here where all the rings overlap in South Italy at the Campobasso region. You see that? See how all the rings tend to overlap right there? So we're on like the last day of the warning. No, wait. Tomorrow is the last day of the warning. So we're on the second to last day of a 7-day warning. And now this happens? A new deep quake right down below it? So I'm not canceling the warning. Campobasso, or Campobasso, how do you say it, man? How do you say it, Italians? Tanto amore, okay? I'm from the United States. Southern Italy, Campobasso, Campobasso. How's that? That's where we watch. Someday I will learn. Until then, much love, tanto amore. Now, over to the east. We go all the way across over to Central America. And you got to remember, this devastating quake, can't forget about it, guys. They're going to be dealing with this for months, if not years. Probably months just in the cleanup, and then years, of course, as any large earthquake would affect an area. So this in particular should be going over to the east. Now, it already is. We've seen an increase in the magnitudes and in the number of earthquakes, particularly the magnitudes. We're all in the 3 range over to the east, over in Puerto Rico. I hope and I expect the activity to go out to our X's. Hope in science, though, I don't like having to hope in anything. The good news is there is a slight increase. Again, we're seeing mid-range 3s, 3.6, 3.5, low-end 3s, but mid-range 3s spread out now over to the east. That's a change from where we were. We were at 0s, 1s, and 2s with a few 3s. Now we're going into the mid-range 3s, so that's a slight increase, which means energy is escaping out over to the east. We would want to see immediately new earthquakes strike out at the X's, indicating that it's a full transfer out, and that this will die out here. You'll see it totally die out here once the energy starts to go over to the east. So you'll see Haiti completely die out. And it looks like it's already starting to, but look, famous last words, right? We're back at 5. Aftershocks at 5. So energy is still trapped there. Oh, wait, hold on. Also, down here at Venezuela. Now, this one, look, we're actually a day beyond the warning expiring now for Venezuela, but nothing's transferred out over to the east yet. So I just have to mention that. My warning for Venezuela looks like it's going to flop. Well, it already did last night. It expired. I was warning for 6-point-something range activity to go through Venezuela over on the East Caribbean, and nothing hit, 6-wise, from Venezuela up to the East Caribbean. Instead, the big earthquake struck in Haiti, Mexico, nothing, Venezuela, nothing. So you got to understand where you got to go back to. I warned Mexico right here for 7.1, and the next day, or 48 hours later, the 7.1 hit right downstream. Again, I warned there, and it hit here. So I was 1,300 miles off. That's an earthquake forecast miss when I'm trying to get it down to 200 miles. Like if it's a dartboard, I'm on the outside very far perimeter, if not out beyond the board. But with the exact magnitude expected right in the same area as the board. Another way to look at this is I'm completely blindfolded with my back to the wall, and I put my hand over my back and I get it right next to the board. Okay, that's another way to look at it for the professor who said it was like throwing darts at a board. You got to remember, darts at a board blindfolded. Okay, now, up in the west-northwest and beyond, we go into the United States. And last night, something significant was seen on Google Earth. Let's go in and show you. They should all be in orange now. Let me turn off all my place marks. And we're only going to be turning on the active fire mapping program. So this is going to show us the hot spots. And look for a bunch of orange dots to appear. This is last night at about 10 p.m. West Coast time, midnight my time. So it's dark outside. It's dark outside last night, and this is going on the weather satellite. Hot spots are showing up all the way across. I mean, you see it. It's the whole state of Washington going down across the coast of Oregon, focusing in on the fires in Northern California, making a big ring around here. Do you see that? Or, well, yeah, it's somewhat of a ring. You see it, though, right? With like an open space in the middle around eastern Oregon. Hopefully you can see that. Now, I'm showing that to you because we're going to go look at the earthquakes. Take a look. Check this out. Well, I got to turn off the magnitudes here and maybe turn down the rings just a little bit. Check it out, guys. Okay, this is 48 hours worth of earthquakes from the USGS. The size of the rings indicates the size of the quake. So we have threes just for size perspective. This is a 3 out here on the ocean. This is a 3 over here in Wyoming. And then it's 2s and 1s in between. But I think you should be able to see a similarity. Let me bring this exactly due north. So it's an exact comparison almost. There we are. There's due north. And, I mean, come on. There's the hot spots detected last night at 10 p.m. Here's the earthquakes over the last 48 hours. So it's pretty, sorry, I'm drinking my smoothie, but it's pretty obvious we're dealing with earthquakes in the same shape and pattern now as the hot spots are being detected by the weather satellite. Now, these hot spots are showing up and they're transferring across the whole plate. They transfer across the craton, following the craton edge. And these things, these hotspots, are somewhere between the ground and space. And the weather satellite, even further up, looking down, is picking them up and filtering them out. It doesn't know how to read them, but it's designed to pick up fires, actual fires on the ground, like these down here, these big clusters where there's orange and red. These are actual fires. It was not designed to pick up these seismic hotspots that pop off and transfer very quickly across a whole plate in the course of a day, cluster up in spots, and appear where there's going to be earthquakes the next day. So we tend to see the hot spots and then earthquakes. And it's, again, not even debatable anymore. For certain now. This is not debatable. The earthquakes for 48 hours match the hot spots from last night. How about this? Only Dutch synths can see the hotspots, according to the mainstream media. They went into spin mode to try and deny these things a couple years ago, back before the new satellite came operational. Well, here we are now, guys. Hey, is it still farmers burning their fields? I'm asking for a friend. What happened to those morons? What happened to all the farmer burning their field people? Are you guys still around? Are you one of them? Are you a former farmer burning their field person? Or are you still espousing the beliefs that farmers are all burning their fields across the country all at once? Geez, guys, you want to talk about coordination? What is it? Farmer Joe have Farmer Joe burner network where they all burn together at the same time like a bunch of hippies at 420? Together, all at once. Woo! 420! No, we're not doing that kind of burning. We're burning the fields, say the farmers. Anyway, all right, now let's carry on. The hotspots match the earthquakes. There's electromagnetic energy that is actually created in the plate when it's placed under stress. So how could the plate be placed under stress? Let's go over and take a look at the USGS plate boundary map and look on the west coast. Out here, the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. It's a lightning bolt-shaped fracture zone out here, like a letter M. And these jagged edges belong to the Pacific Plate. And the Pacific Plate's the plate in motion right now for the most part. We've got the earthquakes going all the way around the red lines, the outside edges of the Pacific Plate, trying to transfer out and equalize across the plate. So energy coming in from up here goes down into the Juan de Fuca, and we get major movement that begins. Thousands of tremors start to happen. Well, you know what? I was really surprised to see that the plate completely stopped shifting and Mother Nature stopped. And the tide stopped too, and the planet stopped rotating. Did you guys hear about that in the news yesterday? The planet stopped rotating and the plate stopped shifting? Did you hear about this? Yeah, plates just stop. They can just go quiet, with no vibrations at all. It's totally normal. Wrong. Guys, if the plate actually stopped shifting, like if it just stopped, I would be really, really worried. Not only would I be worried, I would call it the end of the world. Because plates don't stop shifting, ever. But according to the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network now, according to the people up in the Northwest, it did. And not only did it stop yesterday, but it stopped the day before, on the 15th. There is none, too. And, hey, there was 13 of them on in one day. Again, I'm calling question into the tremors now because it would be really weird if the plate really did stop shifting. So I propose to you this. When the plate starts to shift thousands of tremors at once, they turn it off to their own personal access. And they try to figure out whether they want to report the slow slip to the public or do they want to try and hide it. And the reason they would want to hide it is because they said there was only one per year usually. They actually put a number on it. Came after me when I was talking about it before. Their director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network came after me. And he tried to get my fundraiser shut down, so this got pretty personal. But the long story short, they said that there's only one a year maybe. And if any more than one a year happens, guess what they do, guys? Just saying. No offense, I mean, it's just what it is. So, anyway, the earthquakes now. Let's get into the quakes. So, the tremors are lacking. We don't have any reported. I'm here to tell you. There's thousands of them happening up and down right through here where they don't want you to see any. They don't want you to know the plate shifting because they said it could only happen once a year. All right, now, let's go. Where did they say that? I think they said it over on Facebook, of all places. Isn't that stupid? Let's go ahead and turn on our one-day earthquake feed. This is just going to show us the last 24 hours worth of quakes here. Now, this is going to reduce the number of quakes that you see on the feed. We were looking at 48 hours, but it'll still show us the areas that are moving. For instance, coming out of Montana, going down right into the park, right into the middle of Lake Yellowstone. These are all microquakes, small earthquakes, but look at the direction they're going. They're in a line or a pocket. Do you see that? But look. If you're new here or you're a professional and you didn't know about the Craton Edge, look at the Craton Edge up in Montana. Look where it goes. It goes right down across Yellowstone, guys. As a matter of fact, it goes out to California, at the California-Nevada border. The purple part, do you see that? It goes all the way out to the California-Nevada border. Right at the California-Nevada border where the purple part goes to, that's where the other supervolcano is, Long Valley Caldera. So the two supervolcanoes in the out west that are documented, one Yellowstone, the other Long Valley, on both sides of that purple, right? I mean, it's not up for debate. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, that's where they are. So, right here, this line of quakes happens regularly. It's a diagonal line of quakes that starts up in Montana and goes down into the park. Dead ends into the park where the fracture zone is. But it doesn't just dead end there. I should say it just goes into there and then flows down across the edge of the Craton down to Texas. And we tend to get the same sized earthquakes that are up in Yellowstone, down in Texas, within a short time from each other, within usually the same few days. So, that's what's happened again today. And then it doesn't stop there. Energy does not stop. It transfers. It goes across the Midwest and up the East Coast, following the Craton Edge, all the way up into Quebec. And if it's a big enough push, it can even go out all the way to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It takes a huge push to do that, and you'll see earthquakes dropped off all the way along the Craton Edge, from the West Coast to the East Coast in the course of days. So far, it's low, way low. We're dealing with 3s, basically, out west, 2s in the Midwest. Now, there's a cluster of quakes here, a stack in Utah, right here. There's tens of thousands of oil wells at this point. Sunnyside, Utah, right next to it. Now, notice the depth is negative 1.7 kilometers deep. So it's not up in the sky. We're actually up above sea level by thousands of feet. I'll show you. I want to say this is like as high as Denver, Colorado, maybe even higher. Let's see. Where are we? What's our elevation? Look in the lower right-hand corner. It'll tell us our elevation as I move the mouse around. Yeah, we're at 7,300 feet above sea level right here. So way high up. But I told you, thousands of drill points. Oh, look. Oh, look. Hey. How many are there? Hold on. We got to make sure that there's not any more nearby. Look. only few hotspots in all of Utah. This is the state of Utah now. The only two are right next to where the earthquake is. Here's the earthquake, here's the hotspots. And I told you, tens of thousands of drill points. I'm not exaggerating. This is just where they start. Here's the oil and gas wells. Zoom in and show you. See the tank, the pump, the jack, the pipeline? That's just one pad out of thousands. All these different pads have oil wells on them. So that's where they start. They go across the mountain range. Do you see these? So they go right through the mountains. And they pick back up over here with just what I would call overdrive. So starting right about here, we have thousands of them. These are not forestry clear cuts. These are not houses. I'll just randomly zoom in on any one of them and you'll see oil and gas. And you see the tanks, the pumps, the jacks. Now, it looks like a grid on the ground at this point because every one of these is laid out, again, like a grid almost, all the way across. And you see how many there are, right? We can go across the valley. And over here is the same thing. These are all oil wells. These are not houses. And it keeps going. It keeps going and going and going. Now, that looks like a lot, doesn't it? Right? This right here sure looks like a lot. And it is. I mean, it's thousands of wells right next to each other. It's a lot. It goes through the mountains and everything. I mean, again, take a look at it. See how many there are? Okay, that's nothing. Look right over here. This is where it goes crazy. Where they just have them just willy-nilly all over the place. Every hilltop. And it's not a grid-like formation. It's literally everywhere. And they go just on for miles and miles like this in all directions. Hundreds of square miles, fully drilled, all the way out across massive areas. Okay, why am I showing this all to you?
Well, we got a hotspot there, guys, and we got some earthquakes that are coming in. But don't worry about it.
Dutch Sint is a conspiracy theorist. There's no such thing as oil well earthquakes, says the USGS. Only wastewater disposal. Are they doing wastewater disposal there? I'm asking for a friend, in Utah. Are you guys doing some wastewater disposal there? Hey, isn't that fracking? Doesn't the wastewater break apart the shale and release more gas? Asking for a friend. Isn't wastewater disposal fracking? Of course it is. Anybody who says different's just a BS artist. Of course it's breaking apart the shale and releasing more oil and gas. It's why they're doing it. It's why they're leaving the toxic chemicals down in the ground as they siphon more oil and gas off from the wastewater disposal wells. Sure, guys. How about CO2 sequestration? You doing that down in the wells? Like in Colbrand, Colorado, that blew sky high? Oh, you know about that? Oh, man, listen to this story. Here, Colorado, several years ago, somebody got a great freaking harebrained idea to start pumping liquid CO2 down into old oil wells. CO2 like you put in your soda. The fizzy stuff, the liquid version of it. Freezing, cold as ice. CO2, dry ice, okay? Frozen. Put this shit down in the ground by the billions of gallons, or 100 million gallons or something. And they're storing it down in the ground at a place called around Colbrand, Colorado. Experimental, of course. Keeping it down in the ground as a way to fight global warming. We need to put CO2 down in the ground. Dirt. So they put this stuff down in the ground, and then along comes a push right through here, seismically speaking. And it did. It came right through. And guess where it went? It went right to the CO2 sequestration point down below the mountain. And it caused vibrations and rumbles. So the oil companies, now, again, the people who run the wells, dispatched a guy, and the guy took his son and his friend, but they dispatched a guy to go up and check what was going on. And the guy went up with his son and his friend, and something happened, and the whole thing blew, released all the CO2 that came out like a flood of CO2. But it evaporated off almost instantly, and there was no water left behind. They tried to blame it on a lake or something collapsing or something. But there was no water. Instead, it foamed out and went out across the landscape and sticking to the ground like CO2. It went over hilltops, over mountaintops, whatever it was. Why am I telling you that now? We got a new line of quakes coming right out from another oil pumping operation, and it's going right into Colorado. It's going to go down into Texas. Now, when that happens, when it comes out of here and goes over to Colorado and down into Texas, that's a pretty hard bend down to the south, wouldn't you say? It's like an impact sometimes when the push is big enough. So we have to warn western Colorado, not southern, western, for a potential new swarm of earthquakes that could go up into the 4 range. All these threes should add together into maybe a 3.9. All these 3s and 2s should add together into a single quake and precipitate on the edge of the craton. And then go down to the south, down through Texas, and reignite things in Texas and Oklahoma and the East Coast. So Texas will also get near 4. Also, Oklahoma will get near 4. And then up the East Coast, we'll go some 3s, and we'll see a new 3 pop off between Washington, D.C. and Tennessee. Let's see, where's D.C.? Right here. Okay. Between Maryland and Tennessee, where does that put us? Virginia, still in the warning. West Coast United States, let's talk about this. Southern California is on warning for a upper 6. We have 3 more days to go in the warning. Southern California. Well, central Southern California. I have to warn everybody pretty much from the Bay Area all the way down to L.A., but really, I'm warning from Monterey Bay to Long Valley, down to Ridgecrest and the Mojave, back over and up to San Andreas. It's central Southern California, but if a 6.9 strikes, everybody should feel it as far south as LA and as far north as San Francisco, with the bulk of the majority being the people in the middle here in the valley. Okay, so I hope I'm wrong 100%. And if it looks like it's not going to hit, like we get down to the second to last day, we only have a few more days to go. Again, we have 3 more days to go. So let's say we get to tomorrow and it looks like nothing's going to hit. I will start to retract or downplay or correct my warning if it looks like it's going to be incorrect. I don't like doing that until we get beyond day 7. Okay? So I'm going to start reconsidering, but for now, I'm keeping everything right where it is. Now, for the big earthquake, we have a potential of a 9 that could strike up here at Kamchatka. That's what I really issued the warning for this week to be on watch for. And I've only issued warnings for 9s maybe, I think, once prior. And that was back in 2018. So, and what hit in 2018? An 8.2. It was a deep quake, and the whole planet moved after that. I warned for a 9, 8.2 hits, something like that, okay? So, here we are. We're warning here. Northwest Pacific, we've already dealt with an 8 over to the east in Alaska a couple weeks ago. The whole volcanic chain there is starting to show activity. Seismopochnoi, Mount Pavlov, Karibsky, Shiveluch, Mount Ebico, and the 56,000-foot high blast down here on the Izu Ridge this week. That's a lot. So volcanically speaking, a lot. Considering we're never talking about the Aleutians normally when it comes to volcanic, right? It's only when there's big pushes that we're talking about the North Pacific up in Alaska Aleutians. Okay? You guys can fact check me on that. It's only when the plate's really in motion do we start to see blast go on up here. And they're all going, or not all of them, but several are going, which means that there's the potential for large seismic. Now, that's just on its own, just through the seismic and the volcanic. Now we add in this, all the way down here, South Sandwich Islands. This activity is going to be going through the planet and coming back out the other side on the antipode. So what's the antipode? The exact antipode, the exact opposite side of the planet from here, brings us right to here. So, and I can show you through the Earth. We're looking through the Earth right now. Those are the earthquakes on the opposite side of the planet. Okay, so we're looking directly through, and whoa, just got a little disoriented there. Okay, there we go. So we're looking through and one side to the other. And that's when the energy comes back through, it can restart things back up. Another way, a feedback loop, where you hold a microphone next to a speaker and it picks up the sound, puts it back through the system, and then it comes back out the speaker, picks up the sound again, goes back through the system, and it comes back out, and it starts doing that in a loop, and it builds more amplitude, right? It could blow the speaker eventually if you don't pull the microphone back. It also starts to shriek and get really loud. Well, that's with audio now. Now, the same thing could be applied as energy comes back through the planet here and spreads out and goes back around through the planet and comes back through again, that can have a increase effect. Again, an increase in amplitude, a feedback loop can form if it's a big enough push coming out from the core of the Earth. And that's what we're dealing with overall. The core of the Earth is what's causing all this mess. The core of the Earth has been excited or perturbed or slightly upset by the increase in sun activity, solar activity. Strong coronal hole solar wind, CMEs, X-class flares recently, and MNs, lower, of course. But then we see bigger flares that are coming towards Earth. Whether it's solar wind or charged particles, when those particles come into Earth, they get captured in the magnetosphere and taken down to the core of the Earth, which is an electroplasma device at the core of the Earth. A natural device, I think. I don't think Tesla has been down there to build anything, or the Tartarians. So that down at the core of the Earth, rotating ball of electroplasma. Think lightning, but hotter. Think a plasma torch, but like lightning. And huge. And it's powered by electricity from the poles, which is captured from the sun, which is plugged into the Earth, plugged into the sun like a cable, plugging in a plasma torch to a power source. And the more power that comes in, and the more you crank the knob on the plasma torch, the more the heat increases and the pressure increases inside the Earth. And then it expands out. And when it expands out, it tries to find a path of least resistance up, out, and away. And the West Pacific is that way. Then it spreads from there. But how do we know it's that way? Well, that's where all the volcanic islands are, guys. In comparison to the rest of the planet, all the volcanic islands, just a million of them, and you can see them here. And not all of them are islands. Many of them are under seamounts. One day they may become islands, but this is where it's all uprising. The pressure from down below, pushing up, creating the magma chambers to begin with. Then you get to the middle of the Pacific, and there's a line of undersea volcanoes here, where everything beyond it, over to the east, we don't have as many. Do you notice? On the east side of this volcanic island, or this volcanic undersea mount chain, it's just fracture zones that are equally spaced, or somewhat equidistantly spaced. And then over here, it's all undersea mounts and uprising pressure. So the uprising pressure is coming up on this side, creating all the uprising volcanoes. And then once we get to here, it spreads out equally, or tries to equalize. And it's an equal distribution of force beyond there. So that's where the leverage is coming up underneath. And then the earthquakes spread out and away from there. So obvious. Happens every week that way. Only when we get deep earthquakes elsewhere, like South America or the Caribbean or Europe, do we start to see a variation in that, or really an addition to that. It just adds more to the punch. It again becomes a worldwide loop of very low frequency is what I think we're dealing with here. Now, that gets me into the final point on this. What's causing everything? The deep quakes especially. Look at the screen. What I think is going on down below the plates are concentric VLF or lower waves, very low frequency or lower, and it's electromagnetically induced from the core of the Earth. It's coming up through the magma, which is somewhat of a fluid, going into the asthenosphere down below the plate, and then it focuses in on itself. It can't compress down into the fluids, so it goes up into the plate. The combined force of 500 or 1,000 miles of pressure underneath the plate, focusing in on an area maybe just a few miles across, and it breaks. Once that break happens, it's like a standing wave that spreads out. So first a break happens and a deep earthquake hammers up. Imagine that as this first wave coming in. Now it gets down here and it reflects back into the other waves. Now notice, as it reflects back in, it starts going down to the other end of the tank again, and it starts to pump up the waves. And the more waves that pump back in, the more amplitude, the more magnitude increases in the wave. Now notice the size. Each wave is about the same size. As you pump more energy in, it tries to equalize across the tank in the fluid. Think of these like a 5.0, a 5.0, a 5.0, a 5.0. Now the middle points, the open points, where the trough of the wave or the bottom of the wave is moving across, make note, the center point of the bottom of the wave fills in the next wave's high point. In other words, one wave fills in the other one's middle point perfectly. Watch this. Let's park my mouse over the top of a wave. See? I don't even have to move my mouse. Okay, it's perfect. It's a perfect distribution across this tank in the laboratory. But then we get over to the tank of Mother Nature, which are the plate boundaries. that go out and around the plates. The red lines here. So it's not an even tank like in the lab, but the same thing's going on. A wave is spreading out and it's dropping off the same sized earthquakes all the way around the planet if the push is big enough. The hammering action, the leverage is coming up from down below and it's trying to spread up, out, and away. So we get a bunch of 7s spreading out around the planet. We get 2 8s on both sides of the planet. 1 8 up here in Alaska. And on the antipode to Alaska, by the way, right down here, just east of the earthquakes. So the antipode gets hit by a new 8.1 down south. First an 8.1 up in Alaska, then a week and a half later, 8.1 down here in the south, sandwiched on the opposite side of the planet. Again, that's an antipode quake. You guys are welcome to search antipode quakes. Lots of research has been done on that. A team of scientists searched 5,000 separate quakes and found that a majority of them have antipode effects, opposite sides of the planet, within 3 days. If it's 6.0 and greater, they did the 6.0 and greater study. But I'm here to tell you, it can be as low as 5s and 4s sometimes that we see an antipode effect. But normally it's big quakes. So we get a big quake on one side of the planet, we get a big quake on the other side of the planet, almost exactly opposite from it. Now, that's something else to talk about on a different basis, is forecasting based upon that. Now, for the United States, one more time, we got a warning going down in central to Southern California, basically going from Monterey Bay over to Long Valley, down to Ridgecrest, back over to the coast, over to the San Andreas. Central to Southern California, 6.9 is what I'm warning for. We have 3 more days to go in the warning for that. And the reason I warned you is because Haiti has been hit, and energy should be spreading out in all directions. We should see the middle points between our big earthquakes get hit. So let's go look. Notice anything. 6.9 to 7.0 earthquake up here in Alaska. It was a 7 originally. They downgraded it to a 6.9. Same with this one. Same with these down here. They're doing that on purpose to keep the numbers of earthquakes low, the number of large earthquakes low. Why do you think they reported it in? Why do you think they took the 6s down to 5.9s? Why did they take the 7s down to 6.9s? Again, guys, Occam's razor. Okay, so we warned the halfway points between the current sets of quakes, and you can see Central California is the halfway point if we go over, down, around, and over. Following the red lines of the plate boundary map, let's go back to the USGS map. That'll make it a little easier. So, in other words, from up here, down, across, over, we find the halfway point between the 2 sets of quakes, between Alaska and Haiti. Following the red lines, and that then puts us right here in California. That's why I've warned you, and if anything changes, we will correct that. So 2 large quakes due this week, guys. I'm losing my voice. Time to get out of here. Time for me to blaze on out of here and recuperate. Let's get another sip of the smoothie. Do you have an earthquake plan? Now, let me be serious now. A lot of people are intimidated by earthquakes, and for many years, they told you earthquakes were random. As a matter of fact, for all of human history, they've told you earthquakes were random. They're not. They're related to the deep earthquake activity, and the deep earthquake activity is creating a wave that's spreading out, and that wave that's spreading out is what causes earthquakes. This is what causes earthquakes. It's a VLF of some kind that's generated down below the plates, and then it spreads out following the plate boundaries as it's coming up through the plates. Again, you're creating leverage down below the plates, and then it comes up from down below, and it spreads out around the perimeters. Are you surprised? I mean, if you lift on the underside of something, are you surprised to see it rise on all sides, or as many as you can that aren't completely locked down? Well, the USGS, I guess the USGS would be, remind me never to ask the USGS to help me move, okay? I'm like, hey guys, I need you to pick up that desk. They're like, not possible, Dutch. Hey, when you're packing that U-Haul, guys, put them up against each other so they don't move. They'll butt up against each other, and if they do, they'll just shift side by side. Not gonna happen, Dutch. Physically impossible. Violation of the second law of thermodynamics. These things don't move like you say they do. You can put things right next to each other and lift up underneath them and they don't move at all. Okay, I'm being sarcastic. Why? Because apparently there's been a denial by professionals, but we don't go to them for analysis on something they said couldn't be done. So there's no reason to be scared anymore. You know why? Because you can be prepared. You can watch the activity spread out across the plates yourself, like watching the weather come your way. So you might need a meteorologist to decipher wind currents and pressure charts for you, but you can look at the radar and understand where you are and which way the storm is going, right? Don't have to be too much of a professional to understand going from somewhere and going to somewhere. Well, that's what's happening with the seismic energy and the waves. Now, the waves are going around plates, path of least resistance. Hence, we get earthquakes going across the Craton Edge in the United States as opposed to going directly across the U.S. in a beeline straight across the plate. It's a path of least resistance to go around the weak points of the plate as the force is trying to equalize across the plate. And that means it's coming from somewhere, right? I mean, if it's trying to equalize across something, it means it's coming from somewhere. And it's trying to equalize to somewhere. So it's coming from somewhere. It's going somewhere. It's a trajectory. We can plot it and track it now. The wave that causes the quakes. And the wave that causes the quakes tends to drop off almost the same size quakes all the way across the mass in an equal distribution. Hence, why I think it's a standing wave. Not just a random willy-nilly wave, a chaotic wave. We're talking about an organized wave that pumps more energy in as, of course, energy is pumped in from somewhere. And we know where the pumping action is coming from. It's coming from the West Pacific because that's what's pushing everything up. Simple logic, simple physics applied to mass areas. They said it couldn't happen. There was like some kind of special physics or something that takes place over big things. I didn't know that big things had different physics than small things, other than big things supposedly create gravity. But I even doubt that. I propose to you that gravity is created by an oscillating, what I call hyper-oscillating plasma. That there's already electrical oscillation. Electricity oscillates. It rotates like a corkscrew. So electricity's already oscillating. Plasma is electricity. And it's powered by electricity. But it's physical too. Plasma you can see, air glow. Now what happens if you physically rotate that physical plasma that's already oscillating, rotating electrically? I propose to you that the double oscillation produces its own electromagnetic fields and own gravity. And I think I can prove it, at least the part about producing its own electromagnetic fields, like the Earth, because the experiments have already been done by a dude on YouTube who decided to hook up his plasma globe to a multi-thousand RPM motor and turn it on and see what happens to the plasma tendrils inside the globe. You know, a plasma globe you put your hands on and the tendrils come out and touch your fingers on the outside of the glass and keeps it insulated. Well, he took one of those and rotated it at thousands of RPM, and it turns out the plasma breaks apart and turns into its own North Pole, South Pole, and equator in the globe. And I propose to you that if it was done with a more powerful plasma globe, not one from AA batteries, that rotating plasma, which I had to term hyper-oscillating, again, something that's already oscillating and you rotate it, I would propose to you that produces gravity. That it attracts the full atom itself, almost like a black hole, towards it, pulling to it. And that's why you get gravity on, let's say, asteroids that are big enough. What's this big enough crap? Well, it turns out that electron cascade can happen on just large things in general at the center of the mass. That a big mass moving through space-time can accumulate electrons from space itself. Friction, basically, through space. And that time-space friction, electrons precipitate into the center of a large mass. And that creates gravity, electron precipitation. The cascading of electrons down to the center of something. and that you're just pulled along with it. That's what gravity is, I think. And I think we could prove it if we get a powerful enough plasma globe and rotate it fast enough. It may have to be that the plasma is inside of vaporized iron and nickel and uranium, of all things. So you would need to take nickel, iron, uranium, the heaviest elements on the periodic chart, and somehow vaporize them into a gas, like down at the core of the Earth, and then apply electricity and gigajoules of electricity into this vaporized metallic gas. And that is the plasma globe at the core of the Earth. Right? It's not neon gas inside of a glass container like we would touch our hands to. It's vaporized iron, nickel, and uranium down at the core, rotating extremely fast and fed by electricity from the sun. Like an unfathomable amount of power to do that. And that creates gravity. But that lesser forms of gravity can be created just by electron cascade in a targeted area at the center of something. Okay, enough of that. Man, dude. Okay, I went way on a tangent there. My God. That is like dissertation level plasma physics from a high school grad. On that note, you guys have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. I was starting to tell you about having a plan and not being scared. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Have a plan, know what to do, get underneath a table or a desk if an earthquake strikes. I've never been in an earthquake of any size. Knock on wood. But if you're in an earthquake, I've heard that it's a chaotic thing and that things are falling. I've seen in videos. So, get underneath something that can support falling things. But, of course, it's not going to support a collapsing structure. A table or a desk will not do that usually. So, I would also have an exit plan, but that exit plan will probably be after the earthquake. And if you're going outside, for crying out loud, guys, you've got to know every detail about where you're going. Everything from sewer lines to gas lines to electrical lines above, things that can be falling, even trees. Even liquefaction can happen in grassy areas. Liquefaction, where the ground becomes like a liquid quicksand, basically. So you just need to know your surrounding, and you need to know what to do, where to go. Finally, and that's going to be up to you. I would shelter in place, and then if I had to, if my structure was not going to survive, I would book it outside if I had to, but I would need to know where to go first. Now, finally, you can do a little bit of preparing, like with an emergency kit, change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, all your personal IDs and the keys, things you need to get into your house, all that stuff. You can do that already and have it in a bag. That's pretty easy. You should already have most of it. Sanitation, that's another thing. You're going to want it. You're going to want to clean your hands and wipe your face and all that crap. So make sure to have sanitation covered. Food and water is also for a couple days. We're not talking long-term prepper survival here. We're talking about just a couple days to get you through. And then hopefully you have long-term supplies that will get you through longer if you need it. But the first couple days, it's going to be like fruit roll-ups and granola bars and high-protein stuff, but not meats that you have to cook. You know, beef jerkies that are in prepackaged watertight containers. Those kind of things are recommended for the first day or two of a disaster. High energy, easy to carry, lightweight, prepackaged. Water is about 7 pounds a gallon. So you're going to have to pre-position that stuff, either outside or at least have a 1 gallon jug full that can get you through on small Dixie cups for a day or two. Okay, 1:46 p.m. Central Time. I'm just giving you some ideas. You will come up with way better ideas than what I'm throwing out right now. Looks like we've got ourselves an angler. Boy, he looks like he's set. Look, check him out. Check him out. Check out this dude. Hey, are you watching, bro? Bro, are you watching? Hey, that's something else you might want to have in your bug out bag. A little foldable fishing pole. I'm not kidding. It depends on how long you're going to be without food, okay? So, the fishing thing would be for a long-term, more survival, where a deployable rod of some kind, and of course a tackle and a little bit of fishing line. Have it in your emergency kit. Can't hurt. I mean, catching a fish, you might not even know how to scale it, but maybe somebody else would. You want to talk about barter material at a time where people need food? Fish. Just little things like that can make a big difference, okay? So whoever that guy is, he's hitting my special spot. And I'm going to have to go down and stop. I'm going to get out my megaphone and megaphone him down there. Hey, you down there. You better leave a fish on the dock. That's the fee. Set up a toll bridge. The troll bridge. That's what I'm going to set up down there. Oh, man. Okay. All right. Hey, I'm talking too much. My voice is starting to go away again. I'm out of here. You guys have a good afternoon. Peace out. We're going to go upload this to YouTube, by the way, so everybody can watch it back. I know it's a little casual. I'm not my normal professional all earthquake business self today, but still. Well, wait, did I just call myself professional? Oh, hell no. All right, I'm not part of the system, guys. Maybe I'm thinking a little too highly of myself at this point. Now it is time to go. Peace out.